Expanding your search internationally can be hard, whether it's not there's lack of understanding of employment law, compliance, or risk issues, or maybe just bad experience with borders. Expanding into a different state will bring tax nexus. What about expanding into a different country? Do I create an entity? How do I go about that? That's what we want to talk about here today. To begin, though, I'm gonna take a little bit of a snapshot of just the current landscape here in the U.S. If we go back 2 years, a little more than 2 years, in April 2020, COVID had just started to hit. And we had massive rounds of layoffs happening in the tech industry and other industries, especially hospitality and restaurant. But if you look at these statistics, in April of 2020, over 26,000 people were laid off, and in that 1 month alone. Over the last couple of months, we've seen even almost double that number being laid off in the tech industry. November had 52,000 people being laid off. Just yesterday, Salesforce announced a layoff. Today, Amazon announced another layoff. We're seeing layoffs occur everywhere, but yet there's a very, very interesting thing happening. According to ZipRecruiter and their chief economist, they said that despite the layoffs, despite the cost cutting taking place, these people are finding reemployment remarkably quickly. The people that are being laid off in tech are still as in demand as ever. When we dive into that a little bit deeper, take a look at the US unemployment rate. Over the last 3 years, we've seen obviously a spike because of COVID, but for the most part, the unemployment rate has fallen underneath full employment, which is typically between 4 and 5%. Looked at a different way, take a look at this graph where the red is the number of unemployed people dating back all the way to 2006. You can see the spike that occurred after the recession in 2008, 2009, and then the job openings on the blue line underneath. What's most interesting to me is in 2017, you'll see where those lines flip, where job openings start to outpace the number of unemployed people. And this has been a problem, again, outside of COVID for the last 5 to 6 years. And this is going to continue to be a problem. Looking just recently in 2021 and 2022, those numbers started to grow even further. That gap became wider, and the need for qualified people to fill job openings became all the more necessary. As we all remember, wages started to spike, inflation started to hit due to wages. The demand to find people to fill roles has never been higher, but it creates a lot of really conflicting demands. Tim, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, thanks, Jonathan. So, as we saw on the last slide, today, with the most recent information we have, that gap is 10 million jobs. So, we're not going to be able to fix that gap just looking in the US. Something else has to be done. As we've talked to our clients, what you see on the slide right now is a common situation that we hear quite a bit. The CEO is saying, we might be facing recession. Let's ship the next version of our product. The CFO is saying, recession is coming. We have to cut costs. The chief technology officer is saying, I can't lay off people. I've got to have them if we're going to ship the product. Or a chief revenue officer or a managing partner in a financial services firm is saying, we've got work that we can do right now, but we don't have enough bodies to send to do that work. And without that, we can't invoice more. So there's a lot of work to be done. Everybody thinks we're going into a recession. We have twice as many jobs available as we have people available, and it's just a conundrum that we haven't seen in the U.S. economy.
It's interesting, and one of those ways that you can help fix that is there's a people gap, right? There's a recession that people think is coming, like you mentioned, and it very well could be happening. But the number of companies that need people is still outpacing a lot of the cuts that we're seeing. One of the interesting answers, per se, is taking a look at this. So if we've gone out and created some and grabbed some data from Latin America, North America, for a 15-year software engineer, someone that's been around and done great work and is really professional in their industry. In Canada, in Utah, and in Austin, Texas, you're looking at an individual that's making over $200,000 a year.
200 to 300.
Yeah. So, but if you can expand your search and grow into Latin America or even other parts of the world, obviously we're highlighting LATAM here, but being able to look into other parts of the world, there's a couple of different pieces that really speak loudly. One is quality, right? We're highlighting cost here for a second, but I want to highlight quality. The quality of individuals that know how to code, that know how to do great work, just like we do here in Utah or in the U.S. They're out there. They're everywhere, right?
Well, we
There
found
are
them. We found them.
we find them every
We
day.
find them every day.
There are numerous people that come to universities here in this state to get educated with the same education that you and I have, go back home and then look for that job. Here highlighting that software engineer in Mexico, Colombia, or Argentina, these are wages that are going rate wages or even slightly above, but that give people very comfortable lifestyles and give people opportunities to work for stable U.S. companies with U.S. employment law that is favorable to them. Right?
Exactly.
There's a great opportunity for not only labor arbitrage, picking up great people from external countries, but also economic arbitrage and saving some cost money or some money.
The savings is no good if you can't find the quality, but thankfully we've been able to find the quality.
Absolutely. So let's talk more about that. In the past, Tim, if you want to reach into these countries, how do
Yeah,
we go
you've
about
got
it?
three. You've had three different options. Number one, you could, and we saw this a lot with Indian firms in the past, is that you could do outsourcing. You'd find a company that was owned by somebody else and that had large numbers of tech engineers, and you could hire them to do a project, or usually that was by the hour, and you had some control, but not full control. And you had language barriers in a lot of cases. You had a time zone barrier that in many cases was insurmountable by a lot of companies. Just the distance, and not being able to ever go and visit the office except by really blocking out 10 days on your schedule. After that, and especially in conjunction with COVID, we saw a fast moving model towards independent contractors. So a company would find somebody on LinkedIn, they would say, "Hey, I want you to work for me. Can you do this?" And they'd come to an understanding on economics, and the salary would be sent, the contracted amount would be sent every week or every 2 weeks. And that's fine for a short-term project. That's viable, and that's within the confines of the laws of most countries. But what happened? That contract would get extended and get extended again. And today we have a lot of situations where contractors have been doing the same, working on the same project for the same company for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. And according to the way those people should be classified in their home countries, and this is almost the same way wherever you go on the globe, those people should be classified as employees. And so you, as a user of this resource outside the U.S., are outside of compliance in those countries. A third way that we've seen the access to global talent, and this is the way that I would do it when I was the head of tax at Cemex, is that we would have an entity in the country, and I would hire my team. I started out there with 2 people, 3 people in the tax group, and when I retired from Cemex, we had close to 80 people in the tax group. And so I had a team in Colombia, I had a team in Mexico, I had a team in Houston, in Zurich, Switzerland, in Madrid, and in Manila in the Philippines. And I had very high quality talent there. And I really love this model, and that's a great model for a big company that has other operations there. And just a few indications about the team that I had there. Our turnover was almost non-existent. People loved being part of that team. We had cross-cultural meetings. Um, we would be able to take a tax issue and run it down from a lot of different points of view. And I really love that team. Once in a while, somebody would get a crazy offer because of the quality of our team that we couldn't match,
Yeah.
and that person would end up leaving. But by and large, we had almost zero turnover.
Yeah. But creating an entity comes with its downsides, right? I would say
yeah.
it's the most right way to do it. It's also the most time sensitive. Take a
Well,
lot
it's
of
the
time.
most right. It's the most right if you have a lot of sales and perhaps even manufacturing operations in that same country. But if you don't, there's no reason to form an entity. Once you form an entity, you're on the foreign countries IRS's radar.
Mhm.
You have a thing called value added tax that we in the US are not used to, but exists everywhere else in the world. And you have to file usually monthly value added tax reports. You can be audited. They can disagree with the amount of profit that you're leaving in that non-US entity.
Yeah.
So it comes with all kinds of risks.
Interesting. Why don't we talk just a little bit about one of our clients that we recently worked with? Um, as they had contractors, they were working on this exact thing. So this was kind of a outsourcing dev shop, right? They had 100 or so engineers in India, and they built their own entity and had very complex operations there, and we're happy with it. But they wanted to start expanding around the globe, find more engineers, not only from a labor perspective, but also from just 24/7 operations. So they started to hire individuals out of Latin America and Colombia and Mexico and Costa Rica, but they didn't know how to get them paid. They didn't know how to take care of what we talked about, taxes and benefits, and make sure that statutorily they were above board. So they were paying as contractors and started to get concerned about that. So fortunately for us, we were able to contact or be in contact with them and help them to not only come into compliance, but also bring those contractors to employees or professionals for them. And now they're looking to expand even further because they have a compliant solution. They understand that there are ways to payroll these individuals no matter the country that they're in, and they don't have to create their entity here yet, right? There's a
Exactly.
long runway ahead of them that they can work off of, but they see the benefits to having these people around the globe, whether it be learnings of their ability from a coding perspective or other types of learnings.
And we've seen that with a number of industries, not just tech. We've seen it in the nonprofit industry. It's very hard right now for a nonprofit to attract talent. They can't give stock options. All the tech talent is immediately being absorbed by
Yeah.
companies that can give stock options, fast growing companies. And so, they have a problem, but we've been able to find very qualified professionals, tech as well as administration, as well as almost any knowledge industry professional that you could want.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's an accounting firm, a financial services firm, a nonprofit, even telemedicine can be benefited by this model.
Yeah, we've started out today talking heavily about tech and heavily in Latin America, but by no means is that the breadth of what we can do and the breadth of what we've seen our clients ask for. IsoTalent and our employer of record solution, which we'll talk about more, has the ability to reach into over 150 countries to payroll appropriately, to recruit the right talent, and really what it does is it gives us the ability to say, hey, when COVID hit, we took a lot of jobs remote. We can do that with any job. Now let's just pick the location, right?
Exactly.
Where you can go remote, you can also go find these people and take advantage of larger talent pools.
Well, something I've learned from you about human resource professionals is that they start to shudder when you talk about borders.
Yes.
When you cross from one state to another, and then when you think about crossing into one country that's not the country where you were founded as an entity. But this solution really takes away those shudders because the companies can be at ease that they're totally compliant and that they have the correct contracts, they have the correct local country understanding.
Yeah.
Everything that they need is included in this solution.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about another client that we have that we've been working with. So they took kind of a proof of concept motion to, like you said, like a little bit of concern. Let's test this out. Let's see what we want to do. And so last year they hired 2 engineers in Mexico. So let's just test it out and let's see how it goes. They loved their experience. They loved the quality of the people. They loved that they actually promoted one of them really quickly, and wanted to expand that. And so just recently they were able to say, "Hey, let's take some more of our engineering opportunities or talent, and let's move it south of the border." And so they reached into 5 different countries for 6 engineers throughout Latin America. They said, "Hey, the remote thing works for us. The talent is there. Let's go find them." And so we were able to help recruit those individuals. There's DevOps, there's Node.js developers, manual QA engineers, really, really good talent for them. And over a time period of 5 weeks, they were able to source the candidates, recruit them over. We were able to get them offer letters for each country that were compliant, along with employment contracts and source equipment for these individuals. So 5 weeks end to end, which was awesome, right? High quality talent for this company, but also winning on the recruiting and on the salary side. So these 6 people had total salaries of $270,000, which is $45,000 per person, and recruiting costs of about $8,000 per role that we're able to help them with.
I love this example because we've seen how they just don't even think about borders. They just think about finding the highest
Best
quality,
talent
the best
anywhere.
talent that they can, and they know that we'll be there for them.
Yeah, yeah. It's similar to another group that we worked with. So Another company, they started with the proof of concept model and they started to expand. And now over the last 3 years, they've got 20 engineers in Mexico, but the international piece was working. So they started to get creative and say, where else can we expand? Where else can we broaden that reach internationally? And so they took their customer success team that they were having a hard time retaining here in the US full time and started to move those to the Philippines. They now have a team of almost 15 in the Philippines. And the two pieces or three pieces that really stick out about this group to me is, multiple years in, right? High quality, the referrals that are coming out of this group, they continue to bring in, world class talent from their group, so they don't have to pay a recruiting fee, but also their turnover. Out of this team of 35, 36 and people that we talk about, they've experienced sub 5% turnover over the last few years, which on a technology team alone, let alone your customer success team too, it's unheard of, right? The opportunity is
Really
right.
is.
Not only here in the US, but to expand that wherever you can across the globe.
Well, that's the one thing that I loved about my global team that I had at Cemex is that they were so loyal, and to be able to count on that in the tax profession and in accounting and in a lot of different areas, you need to have that historical memory.
Yeah.
And if you lose that, you lose your ability to defend yourself when the IRS comes knocking, and
Yeah.
you lose a lot.
Yeah.
And so there really is a high cost. Fortunately, and our experience has been that not only is it better, the retention and the lack of turnover better than in a US company, it's incomparably better.
Yeah. Well, and go back to the beginning of the slides here, if you will. When that influx happens and job openings go way above, job seekers here in the US, the people that work in our positions, they get hit by recruiters every day, right? Everyone wants to pull them to a different world or a different job. Whereas in foreign countries, you don't see that as much, right? The opportunity for a US company to reach in and say, hey, here's this great, stable job, opportunity to expand your resume to a US type job and company. That's an opportunity that A, people want to jump at, but also B, it doesn't come knocking near as often as what we're spoiled with here in the
And when it
US.
does, a lot of times it comes knocking as a contract position,
True.
right?
True. Why don't we talk a little bit about EOR and the opportunity with what a global employer of record really can do?
So this to me is exactly where a company that is not a large manufacturer with an in-country operation needs to be. An employer of record basically means that we use one of our entities to sign an offer letter, to sign an employment contract, to provide offices if needed, to provide everything that a company needs in order to get started and continue to work. But they do it not under their own name, but they do it under our name, and we ensure that you're compliant. So all the complexities, all of the cultural differences that you have when you go into outside the U.S. are under our name. We take care of that.
Yeah.
Now there's an agreement between the two of us that say that we're in this together, and we can talk to you about what that contract looks like. It's not onerous at all. It's very friendly between the two of us, but it enables you to use our infrastructure to find the best talent.
Yeah. It's rather than saying, all right, I found talent. Now what do I do? It's we can help you find that talent or you find your own. That's fine. But then let's do it the compliant way, right? Let's take an employment contract. Let's fund payroll with taxes and statutory benefits, making sure that we're compliant in all of the different areas, right? Now, I've done HR for a long time. My gray hair will tell you that, but I don't know the laws in every country, and I never will. I know that I won't, but we have professionals in a lot of countries that help us with that. And so when you want to move into this country or that country, we have expertise behind us through a large network of people that do work and have payroll and HR teams in these countries worldwide.
Well, and we not only have that, but something that you said one time, Jonathan, really made an impact on me. And you said, when we hire somebody for our clients, we solve one problem and we create seven more.
Yeah.
They have an issue of providing non-statutory benefits to their employees. They have an issue of getting swag to them, t-shirts, water bottles, whatever, to promote the brand and create team, a feeling of team in that office. They have a problem with
Equipment.
technology. Exactly. How do we get computers to that person that's sitting in Mexico or in Costa Rica? How do we do that? So what I love about the solution that I've seen here in IsoTalent is that we don't just provide a statutory solution.
Yeah.
We provide a logistical solution. We can take your needs from the very beginning as far as you need them satisfied. We can help you with all the aspects of doing this.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's, I would say, one of the biggest reasons that I see IsoTalent being a great opportunity for people. Another one here, this is just a quick sneak peek into, the systems that we're building here at IsoTalent. So we manage a lot of our HR teams or teams in general through an HRIS or a payroll system. But how do you manage that internationally? IsoTalent's built out a solution for that I like to call, from an HR perspective, kind of an international HRIS. Gives you a quick view into where's my onboarding at, what expense reports are coming through. Are we statutorily taken care of from a PTO perspective for each country, and what do the accruals look like? It systematizes and gives us a platform to work off of that gives anyone in the organization, whether it be manager, whether it be HR or finance, a view into their international employees, but then also helps you as you onboard, you manage, and then if you need to, you offboard, and you have full transparency into that. It's brought a great solution to a long-term problem as we move into a modern world internationally.
I love this tool because it has three views. We can look at it and we can see what's going on and make sure that everything's in order, but it also allows the company and the employee to have the views that they need to know that they're in compliance.
Yeah.
One of the complaints that I've heard from our clients before we've been able to help them is that the people that are on an EOR don't feel like they're part of the organization because they don't have their pay stub on time, or they don't have all the things that the people in the home country entity have. But this tool, every day, it has more and more things that make it more and more friendly to the employee, so that they feel like they're part of the organization. They see themselves in the organization through this tool.
Culturally invested, technologically invested as part of the team.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, a couple quick questions. I mean, why there are plenty of EORs in the world. Why IsoTalent? First and foremost, plenty of depth of experience of those of us that have worked internationally throughout their time. Whether it's Tim, who's lived internationally, or others of us who have worked with international talent, but the full service aspect of what IsoTalent does, where we can help recruit, we can help keep compliant, we can help source equipment. We can make it so that your employees, your professionals across the globe feel like they're a part of the team, but also give you the opportunity to say, I want to find the best talent anywhere. And if that best talent is sitting in Manila, Philippines, or if they're sitting in Nairobi, Kenya, or if they're sitting in Monterrey, Mexico, doesn't matter. Let's go find the best team, the best talent for what you need, and we can help do that no matter the border. Like you said, borders have always scared me. I don't want to create tax nexus, or I don't want to go into international waters if I don't have to. The OR solution removes a lot of that. We go ahead and we take them on, we hire them for you, and then they're your employee. You manage them on a day-to-day basis. They're yours full time, and then do whatever you need to continue to grow your business. It's a great option.
It really is. It really is. I love the fact that these 40 years of experience that we have here inside of our house, inside of IsoTalent, allow us to not only help you to recruit, help you to hire the best talent, but give you unmatched cultural insight. This might work in Costa Rica, but it doesn't work in Mexico, or this might work in Mexico, but it doesn't work in the Philippines. And we have that type of insight because we've worked there our whole lives.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference. It really does.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to us and says, can you help me figure out where I need to have my next team, or what adjustments I can make to the last team I hired, we can talk through all the issues that are important for you, and we can talk through issues that you may not have even thought of, and get to a consensus with you, and then help you in the way that makes the most sense for your organization.
Or, hey, I have started to reach internationally, but I've got these contractors.
Exactly.
Let's figure out how to do this, right?
Exactly.
So that I can continue to expand without getting on, the wrong tax authorities' radar.
Badly.
Yeah. So with that, we appreciate your time today. Appreciate you sticking with us. If you'd like to talk more with IsoTalent and our team and see how you can expand your reach globally, here's a quick QR code, or feel free to go to isotalent.com/go global. We'd love to talk with you and love to see how we can help you and your company as you look to expand globally. With that, Tim and I are going to kind of take a little bit of a step back and answer some of the questions that we have that have come through. So just taking a quick look here. So first question, um, why can't why can't employees have normal unlimited PTO policy? Tim, why don't you talk about PTO there for
Ah,
a second?
great question. Great question. So a lot of companies, a lot of U.S. companies, Canadian companies, European, have adopted to attract more talent or the best talent an unlimited personal time off policy. So if somebody wants to take a day and they're caught up on their work, they can take a day. The problem with that is when you go into a lot of these countries that are more structured, that are more formalistic than they are the spirit of the law, the day that they leave, you have to pay cash money for the accrued vacation time that they have. And if you have an unlimited time off policy, the day that they leave, you'll have an unlimited
Exposure.
amount exposure that you have to pay to this employee in order to lay them off or when they decide to retire from the organization. So there are differences, and we know how to take care of those differences in the employment contracts. And in Mexico, after your first year of employment, you're entitled to 12 days of vacation and a vacation premium during those 12 days on your salary. And in that case, we would recommend that's what the employment contracts state, and not something that would enable them and entitle them to unlimited days off.
Yeah. Question that came in: what is the global? Or let's take this first question: is this only for technologist positions? Definitely not. There are positions all over the world that are being taken care of or worked across the globe. So going back to what I talked about with COVID, when all of us went home, I remember it exactly March 11th, 2020, where you know travel was shut down to and from China. I, as an HR person, was talking with our CEO to say, what's our contingent plan? That was a Thursday. The next Monday, our company was fully remote. Everyone was working from home. And that became this eye opening experience for us to say, oh, this can work, right? Whether it be an accounting team, whether it be an HR team, whether it be a technology team, whether it be a customer success team. If it worked for you then, it'll work for you now. And if it works for you now, it can work for you international. The talent's everywhere.
The talent is everywhere, and something that I love about this solution is that it helps small and medium sized business. That's really our target market. We're dealing with a local CPA here, a one man CPA firm who said, I can't grow. I've made an offer to somebody that has 2 years of experience, and they want $95,000, and that's the range for that person. But he can't bill that person at a high enough billing rate in order to make any money. And so he came and talked to us, and we talked to him about somebody that we knew that had an accounting degree and accounting experience in Colombia that was looking for a job that paid him $10 an hour. He's not from Bogota, and he speaks a little bit of English, but not a lot. And we were able to put those two people in contact with each other. And with that person, this accountant is able to now leverage that person and their capabilities and grow his firm. And he thinks that that's how he's going to grow in the future. Um, it's not a perfect solution. It would be a lot easier if the person were sitting right next to him, but that's not available to him, and he's making do. The technology is there to make this work. The video conferencing, Zoom, Teams, all of that's there. Um, Amazon Web, other
Yeah,
cloud services, so that the information is protected. That's all there. And so this really is a solution that works and that can be up and running quickly.
excellent, excellent. Another question that came in is how does IsoTalent access these international job seekers? So I'll take that, and then feel free to jump in, Tim. But recruiting is at the forefront of what IsoTalent has always been, whether it's domestic or international, and that's still a large part of what our business is. But partnerships, global partnerships is key, whether that be universities and alumni, whether that be other groups that we've been a part of, right? There's multiple groups that we meet with on a monthly or a quarterly basis that are saying, please, like, we want our people to get jobs. Please help them. And here's the talent. Why don't you talk a little bit about the group that you met with a couple weeks ago?
So Paul, that started off with the introductory comments, has got great reach, and I'm just always surprised by how many people he has access to.
How
But
many friends he
how many
has?
friends he has. But he's part of a group that he formed, and a couple of weeks ago, 40 ambassadors or their staff met on a conference call, and we talked to them about global knowledge jobs, and so many of them are interested in exploring that and being able to access those jobs for the citizens of their countries. And many of them, of that initial group of 40, have committed to sending us the names of the people that they think can be part of this EOR solution. In other words, they're bilingual.
Yeah.
They have the educational training. They have some experience, and they're eager to do this. And so, they may not all meet every criteria, but we've got great access into those countries. If you say, I
Numerous.
want somebody in Ghana, we've got a list of great people in Ghana right now. Same with
Yeah.
Nigeria, same with South Africa, and all over Latin America. I'm a little bit biased towards Latin America.
Hmm.
I live there, but also I love the time zone.
Yeah.
It's not, for some people, the opposite time zone is exactly what they need. But I love the idea that you can be on a plane from Mexico City to Salt Lake on a direct flight, or to Houston, or to Dallas, and be there in 2 to 2.5 hours. So you've got that immediate connection, and you're able to have that much more cultural reach and connection with your
Yeah.
remote office and your remote employees.
Yeah. One short flight away really makes a difference.
Yeah, and that makes it easier for us to recruit them. But we do have access. We do have access to the talent pools around the world, and we're developing those all the time.
Awesome. Awesome. One other question that came in is, or let's take this one, does a global EOR service offer payroll and benefits to international employees? So at a minimum, yes, we offer payroll. We offer statutory benefits. So think of statutory benefits as more like socialized healthcare
Mhm.
or socialized benefits that are mandatory from a government. But a lot of times, especially as you get into more professional workers, those minimum benefits or those statutory benefits aren't quite enough. And so, again, through those networks and partnerships that we have, if a statutory insurance plan like you see in Canada or you see in Mexico, for instance, isn't enough, we also have access to private insurance plans, and they cost a little bit more, but they're kind of on par with what we see in the U.S. Right?
Mhm.
Insurance for doctors and hospital visits and prescriptions that maybe are a little bit richer than what they typically see as the statutory minimums. So yes, we offer both of those, both payroll benefits and above and beyond the statutory benefits.
And we see more and more that our clients are trying to align their benefits for their non-U.S. employees with what their U.S. employees get. And so, as those needs increase, we're able to access other providers in different countries. And, whether it's a savings plan, or, like you said, a health insurance policy, a dental policy,
Yeah.
a vision policy, we're able to get all of that, and it's statutorily compliant.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Last question. What does the global deposit cover? Great question. So typically, as you decide on a professional and you want to onboard them and bring them onto ISO Global, there's a deposit that's put into, or the deposit that's charged, we'll call it, and that's typically 1 to 2 months of that individual's pay, taxes, etc. First of all, it's a refundable deposit, right? That's something that what you're doing is you're pre-funding severance costs, pre-funding a final payroll, and then allowing for a little bit of float in the middle. So you're billed from the EOR once a month, but 2 payrolls a month go out, and so there's a float there in the middle that needs to occur. But also towards the end, if a severance needs to get paid, a lot of times in countries outside of the U.S., a severance is mandatory. And so making sure that severance is at least partially paid for and covered up front for that deposit is important. Now, it's not always mandatory that a deposit is paid. If there's cause for termination, or if the person resigns, then that deposit that's paid, or that severance that's typically mandatory, wouldn't be mandatory, and that deposit would be refunded in full, as it's not necessary. So, great question. It's one of the complexities of international is that deposit would be severance or other termination payments that would be different than what we see in the U.S., but could also be there.
Exactly. A lot of the non-U.S. countries countries outside the U.S. require so many different things in the
Yeah.
payroll calculation. It's very different country by country. So some of those things, as soon as we put somebody on the payroll, we're statutorily and legally obligated for certain of those things, and we need to make sure that we have them covered. But that's the deposit.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate you spending 45 minutes with us today. And thanks, Tim and Paul, for the opportunity. Again, we'd love to talk to you if your aspirations are to move global, whether it be finding a team to move globally, or to continue to expand into new countries. So there's a link in the chat. Again, hub.isotalent.com/go global, or isotalent.com is our website. And we're standing by to speak with you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Have a good day.